I'm Duncan Brown. I'm a software engineer and I'm the head of software engineering at i.AI. These are my views, not i.AI's, and I'd just like to present an idea. As many of you will know, Richard Pope has written this excellent book, Platform Land, which is a vision for how bits of the digital state could interoperate. In Platform Land, small, salient facts are shared between services. For example, credentials of ownership or status, the idea being that services can coordinate and services can become proactive, eliminating these whole categories of bureaucracy. Platform Land strongly implies a federated approach to data sharing. Federated because this is fundamentally a distributed system. It must be based on standards because how else could federation work? Those standards must be open because they will need to evolve and be held in common. And finally, it must be developed plank by plank against concrete specific needs, because that's the only way to build good software. And that means you need not build a totalizing monoculture of data collection and data sharing via some kind of centrally planned mega project. Next to Platform Land on my bookshelf is this brilliant paper about the National Data Library. Ben Goldacre and colleagues wrote this in response to a call for proposals about how the library could be built. Funnily enough, they make a strong case that the National Data Library needs to be a federation of data providers, built on open standards, and at least at first, case by case, according to concrete needs. Obviously, these two visions are compatible. One is transactional, one analytical, but they both run on distributed facts, so they both have very similar dependencies. And the reason I'm standing here now is because whilst I think it is conceivable that we deliver one radical transformation to the way we share facts over the next 10 years or so, it's even more conceivable that we deliver two, and they turn out to be incompatible. Unfortunately, it's extremely difficult, it turns out, to have strategic conversations about large systems that don't exist yet. In a report on the National Data Library, the Tony Blair Institute nods at Ben Goldacre's and other proposals for a federated discovery-led approach. But it struck me as odd that the first recommendation of the powerful voices in this report is to set up multiple layers of governance with reporting lines to the Prime Minister himself. In the hope of a brighter federated future, which is the critical dependency in realizing some of these benefits, I want to put a small, slightly chaotic thumb on the scales on the side of practice rather than governance. And I want to do that by throwing generative AI into it, hopefully not in the way you might expect. One of my favorite quotes about AI comes from Cory Doctorow from December 2023. An AI that helps radiologists by giving a second opinion, he writes, might help them find tumors on X-rays, but that's a tool that reduces the number of scans a radiologist processes in a shift by making them go back and reconsider the scans they've already processed. But AI's sales pitch, he goes on, is not buy an AI tool and increase your costs while increasing your accuracy. The pitch for AI is buy an AI and save money by firing workers. This is definitely savage, but it's also definitely not proven wrong yet, even though it's been a while. And you could take it even further. If the AI savings argument falls apart in a snowstorm of lawsuits and/or extremely onerous oversight practices, if it turns out that you need so much human in the loop that getting equivalent performance actually costs more than it did before, at that point you might start asking yourself questions like, well, I'm going to spend some money anyway. Do I want to send it to California to spend on power stations and GPUs, or shall I keep it here and hire Sid? Sid, after all, is a person. So I'm not surprised that a slim majority of people turn out to be neutral or negative on the impact of AI both on society or themselves. There will not definitely be a killer app. Indeed, there are signs that the models might be getting cleverer without getting much more reliable. And in the case of GPT 4.5, which came out very recently, much, much more expensive to boot. But it's a shame to waste a good crisis, and in the absence of a crisis, a good hype cycle will do. And right now we're at the crest of the greatest, the goldenest, the $500 billion-est hype cycle the world has ever seen. So my question is, can we take the money and the energy and the curiosity that is driving the frankly remarkable, when you think about it, proportions of people on the positive side of that chart, and tastefully divert some of it into boring old data sharing, maybe with some AI benefits? If there's one thing I've learned over the last year being involved with teams across governments, with panels and courses and Q&As and talks, it's that people are deeply curious about AI. They want to work with it, or I should say, they want to play with it at work. So to go back to the start, one, to do good cross-cutting work in government, whether transactional or analytical, whether AI is involved or not, we require an open, diverse ecosystem for information sharing. 2, to have that, we must work on interoperability via open standards. The only way to develop those is in the open and to test them in the fires of production as early and as often as possible. And 3, political will to invest in AI is roughly aligned with teams' will to engage with it. So the question is, what would it look like to enable broad participation in AI at the same time as supporting the evolution of a data-sharing ecosystem, and I guess the evolution of its governance? Here is a proposal. You have to accept something a bit strange to begin with, and I'm not sure this is good, but it is an idea, which is that the easiest form of data to share is text, specifically text in the public domain. AI makes it possible to compute on free text, and text is schemaless. Public domain does not mean useless. There are operational teams and support teams across government, and indeed across the whole public sector, whose work is to understand, corral, and communicate guidance from mostly public corpuses, mostly hosted on Gov.uk, but also elsewhere. And I believe we underrate the work of curation that goes into constructing the sets of documents that these teams use. We could give teams the means to curate their texts, first on a central platform. Perhaps you could run periodic web scrapers for them, or plug into their SharePoints or whatever it is. And then, out of that platform, offer interfaces for that text. Get the whole thing, maybe, or do semantic search on them, but crucially provide this information in a standard API which AI capabilities can consume. Perhaps your capability is a chatbot, perhaps it's structuring every document in your corpus according to a JSON schema, perhaps it's reading all your public documentation and pointing out all the redundancies and contradictions in it. But it is doing this over a standardized interface. Tools support multiple datasets support multiple tools, and of course the price of entry for this is adopting the standard, either as a tool or a dataset. Eventually you get authentication, and eventually you can do away with the platform because you have standards, and so you have an ecosystem. And then at some point, we can start on the numbers. Thank you very much.